Yes, welcome to the Design, Research and Innovation Festival 2020. Welcome to Drive Safety. Woo! Yes, and for the 7th year in a row, ClickNL and Design United, they bring you state-of-the-art knowledge and innovation. And this year, more than ever, we focus on social challenges. And today, that's safety. Because we all want to live and work in a safe and secure environment. But in our modern and ever-changing society, we are facing more and more a polarized world. Because of our online possibilities, people live more and more in their own bubble and disagree more and more with our rules and law, both visible and invisible. And to change this, we need new ways of working, co-creation and participation. And what are those new ways? And how can social design contribute to this social challenge? Welcome to Drive's Safety today. Yes, we are here at the Effenaar with people live with us, but also with the people back home on Zoom. Marjolein, you are our Zoom moderator, and you start actually with 2 polls for them.
Yes.
The first one is about, are they involved in preventing crime themselves?
Yes, and they say, well, as a civilian, nothing special for 50%. And some are like, yeah, I'm a professional working at this topic. So that's pretty cool.
Okay, and let's see how is it with our audience. Are you also involved in preventing crime yourself? Can we see some hands? Okay, perfect. Yes, some speakers as well, but nice to have the specialists here also with us. And the second question was, what do you think as a civilian of your own role?
And the majority answers, I would like to be more involved, but low-key. So not too big of a deal. Feed me with what I should look at for and would look out for and where I should report it.
Okay. So different answers. So if they have any questions, or maybe if they want to contribute something, or if they have great solutions, so please, people back home, tell us whatever you want to tell, because we like your interaction. Because we're going to talk about what's happening in the world of design, what's happening in the world of research. But we start with design. What is happening in the world of design? And Ronald van Schaik, founder and owner at Kaliber, a digital design bureau for intense interaction. He will tell us more about a project that they did for the Dienst Justitiële Inrichtingen, the Dutch custodial institution agency, on how to involve juveniles in the way they work. The floor is yours, Ronald van Schaik.
So, thank you for your kind introduction, Anouschka. My name is Ronald van Schaik. As said, I'm the founder and owner of Kaliber, and we did a project for the Ministry of Security, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about that. After that, we're going to do a little bit of the demonstration of the product that we developed. In the Netherlands, there are 7 juvenile prisons with 550 boys in prison. The purpose of detention is, of course, that the boys come out as a better person, ready for the new role in society. So different treatment programs have been developed to do so. But the Ministry of Justice and Security felt there was some room for improvement. So they come up to us with this question. How to involve juvenile delinquents with a treatment program in a better way? And actually, that's quite an open question, of course. There's no standard solution. So this requires a more innovative approach. But we had some barriers to overcome. First of all, it's kind of an intangible problem, and there's no clear side of a solution. But there was also a limitation in freedom when it comes to innovation. We needed to take into account privacy, security, hierarchy of the organization, characteristics of the target audience, and also some very practical issues like there's no Wi-Fi There's no internet, no devices are allowed, and we had to build something that's very durable, something that we can build upon for the future. And of course, that's a big problem. We were not able to have contact with the target audience, the inmates themselves. Nevertheless, the client was determined to explore new ways. So to tackle a challenge like this, you have to take into account 4 Ds: the dream, the drive, the design, and the deadline. And to do so, you have to trust the process. So we had 3 sprints during 8 weeks. And first of all, we focused on finding the right problem. In the following 2 sprints, we focused on finding the right solution and make it tangible. So we had to zoom out of the problem at first, and with a clear definition of the challenge, we worked on a strategy and a design for the solution. But prototypes speak louder than words. So we wanted to end up with a working prototype that we could test with the target audience to learn if our proposition was right and how we could improve it. And with these insights, the next step is to transform it into a real product. To overcome a fear of innovation, we had the team members and the stakeholders get acquainted with some of our own projects. And those are experimental projects just to show them that anything is possible. So as said earlier, we were not able to interact with the inmates themselves. So we had no contact, no interviews, no panel discussions with our target audience. And to understand their situation and the persons themselves, we had ourselves locked in the cell, and we had just to get a sense of what it's like to be in prison, how lonely it is, how horrible it is, just to feel what they are feeling. And besides that, we did workshops with several team members and stakeholders, like psychologists and the guards and the coaches and some management people, of course, just to learn about the target audience and the situation that they are in. Based on those insights, we created something that we call a juvenile experience map. And a juvenile experience map is like a customer experience map with all the stages of imprisonment, with the thoughts of the inmates, their sentiment, their motivation, and of course, where there's room for improvement, what the chances are, the possibilities are, and what the bottlenecks are for interventions. And as you can see, in the early stages, a lot of the emotions are red. But later on, they're not that angry anymore. They're more positive, they're more optimistic. So then, in these stages, there's room for improvement, there's room for interventions. In the phase of finding the solution, we came up with this concept, using the power of digital culture and gamification to motivate and engage boys. By using the ground rules of gamification, we were able to gain attention, spark intrinsic motivation, involve them with the program, and make progress more tangible. During the whole period of detention, we wanted to integrate small challenges and rewards to involve them with the program and give them a sense of progression. And we could apply that on daily situation, on life challenges, interactive role plays, group discussions, VR experiences, and so on. As part of the strategy and the designed solution, we developed all these kinds of designs just to get to show what we were thinking about, and also a little fact that the VR experience were actually developed. But we Well, I had some more slides after these ones. Maybe someone of technics could help me out?
I think they're working on it. Let's see. What I just want to say, I love how you try to feel like engage in the world of these juvenile delinquents. Like,
And that was just the first step.
yeah, but that's pretty cool, though.
Well, thank you.
So how many slides are you missing actually, Ronald?
Oh, several slides.
Okay.
But to continue without slides, as part of the strategy and the design solution, we developed a prototype of the interactive table, which we used for group discussions. In a normal situation, those inmates are not very comfortable with talking about moral dilemmas, what is good and wrong behavior, discussions about complex topics like handling money or dealing with sexuality, and so on and so on. And besides that, those stories are mostly complicated. The answers are pretty hard, and it's hard to process that for them. So we made a very simple prototype using 4 wooden plates, a computer, an Arduino, some buttons, and a beamer. And with this beamer, we projected animations of those situations onto a table and gave them room, the opportunity to answer questions. We explicitly did not use any tablets or standalone computers. Just the fact that they are all on one table opens them up for interaction with each other and more involvement with the subjects themselves.
Ronald, I think I see.
Yeah, there's something
action.
getting back.
Hallelujah.
And after that, we did some user tests. And the user tests were quite successful in a way that we learned how they were interacting with the subject, the level of involvement, and most of all, what needs improvement. So in the next phase, we were working from a prototype to a product, and we came up with those insights of the user test and combined them with specific needs of the organization. For instance, it was essential that the moderator had the opportunity to have more influence on the dynamics of the game and of the group. So we made the possibility for him to control it by a tablet, swipe the questions on the table, give extra reward, give extra badges for someone who gave good answers, and so on and so on. Besides that, we created a content management system so they could put their own content on it, and we developed a steady open source development platform so external parties could join in as well. And last of it, it had to be a very durable and solid table because those guys are quite rough, and it had to be transportable. And the fun fact is that the tables themselves were made in the workshops of the adult prisons. So let's go over to the table, and let's remember that it's okay to embrace the unknown, because we deal with new questions, new cases, and that ask for a new innovative way of thinking in which creativity, digital, and interactivity play a very essential role. Thank you.
Thank you, Ronald. Let's move to the table. Yes.
Okay. Welcome at the interactive table. I'm going to give you a short demonstration. As Ronald says, it's developed for the youth prisons, for the youth delinquents, but I use it also at the adults, and I use it also for the personal.
Because Burg, you are from the dienst justitiële inrichting, hè? Burg de Man.
Yes, I am. Thank you.
A real professional.
I hope so. You're going to see a small interview on the table, a movie of an interview, a street interview, and the interviewer asked the people on the street, would you report your family if they do something criminal? I use this film by youth and also by adults to try to get the moral standards a little bit higher. What would you say, yes or no? So let's start. We're going to start the film.
Wij zijn op dit moment in Rotterdam om jou te vragen of jij je eigen familielid zou aangeven of niet.
Ik zal hem sowieso niet, ik zal het niet aangeven.
Nee?
Ik zal dat niet doen.
Waarom niet?
Mijn broer was niet. Nee, dat zou ik het niet doen. Ja, het is familie boven alles, dus vandaar.
Is mijn familie, hè? Blijft familie. Ja, ik weet niet, ik zou niet kunnen.
Zou jij hem aangeven?
Nee? Nee?
Nou, maar even serieus, zou jij je vent aangeven dan?
Ik niet.
Ja.
So the interviewer said, no, I won't do that. But what are you going to do? Would you report your family? And these are the answers you can choose. You have 5 seconds left. All right. It depends on what has been done. Explain, please.
Yeah, it's a little bit the middle choice.
The most easy choice.
Because what I would do, I would take action, but not necessarily immediately report.
And what kind of action you're going to take?
I would go into conversation and talk about it.
Yes.
And mention that it's illegal, and then maybe, say it's worthwhile reporting, and maybe you should report yourself in.
Okay, nice. I can give you points for participation.
Okay.
Oh wow, thank you.
Great.
Yes!
For you, it depends on what has been done. And what should your family have been done when you say, I'm going to report you?
Well, sort of the extreme end is murder, etc., etc. So is it a small thing that you think you can, as Nynke said, that could be corrected within the family or by the moral system in the family? If it is really beyond that, again, it would encourage the person to self-report.
I'm going to ask you a hard question.
Yeah.
Where's the line for you?
It's a really hard question.
Yeah, where is your line?
So what's the scale?
Report or not?
It depends on what's been done, or it depends on other people have been hurt, I guess, is the thing. Yeah. So if other people have really been hurt, wait a minute, that's completely not
And if
possible.
something is stolen from another, is that person hurt or not?
Yeah, that's the question. People often feel that if I report something as stolen that hasn't been stolen, but I get my travel insurance back. These insurance companies are very big and blah, blah, blah. So people often don't see that as a crime. Well, of course it is.
It is.
But it is something abstract that the crime is against.
Yeah. I come back later to you.
Yeah.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
Now you get a badge for a good retardation.
Okay.
Ronald, you said yes, I do.
Yes.
Why?
Because a crime is a crime, and it's a very, like you said, it's a very thin line what you should report on or not. But if I think about my kids and they stole something, I have to take my role as a parent and do something about it.
Even if you know they go to the juvenile prison?
Holy oh wow.
Yes, punishable is punishable.
Yeah, that's what I said, right?
That's what you said.
It's not just going to the police and have some words with them. It's really going into jail.
Well, it depends on what they've done, of course.
Yeah.
Is it important for you how far a family it is? You have your family in house, but you have nephews, cousins.
Yeah, I love them all. So that's
but you love them.
Let's see. Can I think of someone who is not that? No, but it is such a hard question to answer, and the safest choice, of course, depends on what's been done. That's absolutely true. But I strongly believe that if you do a crime, something has to be done about it.
Okay, what is something what you should do? One of your kids came home. He told me, I found a new iPhone on the street,
Yeah, yeah,
fully packed in the case. Also, I
Yeah.
found it on the street.
yeah.
What you gonna do?
Is it newer than my iPhone? It's my first question. No, we have to go to the police. We have to report this, and we have to give it back.
Is
because
it
it's-
another way to solve this? One of you? Would you react on what Ronald says? What could you do more?
Yeah.
You said it something.
Finding the iPhone, you mean?
No, yeah, or the one of your kids. There is something. Maybe there is something between report and not do nothing. Speak with them. You said it also.
Yeah, address the
Yeah.
issue. Why?
Yes.
Yeah, of course. Why do you need a new iPhone? That's a good discussion to have in the family, of course. But we were talking about officially reporting, of
Yeah.
course. If they do something bad, we always have those discussions.
Yeah, that's my opinion as well. You first always start with a conversation and a dialogue, but if it's really something that you have to report, you have to report.
And,
That's the line.
So you agree?
I do. I also, yes.
Ah,
for
we're on the same
responsible.
page. Cool.
We have a Dutch program, Opsporing Verzocht. You're looking at it at Tuesday evening, and the robber you saw on the film looks like very, very hard on your cousin.
Yeah. You got 1 minute left. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. What you gonna do?
Reporting.
Reporting, even if it's your cousin. What would you do?
Call my cousin.
Call your cousin, and what you gonna do then?
I said, you look very much like...
Tell me it's not you.
Is there a possibility you
What
are?
should I do? I should ask.
Yeah. And if you report, are you brave enough to call the police directly, or do you it anonymous? There is a way to call, and you don't even have your, give your name. Anonymous. Yes.
No, I would
What would
never-
you do?
Probably anonymous.
Anonymous.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Okay. I think the minutes is almost over. I hope you have a good impression of the possibilities of the table. I can go hours and hours with this, but
Did I win?
if you want to win, I give you for that smart question you get brains.
We got a winner. Well, thank you very much, Burg, for your demonstration. And
Thank you.
Ronald, we move on to the next table for some questions from our audience. So if you have questions, please address them to Marjolein with Zoom.
Okay.
Number.
Yeah, Ronald. Well, a great table, great demonstration as well.
Thank
so
you.
let's see, because we have some minutes left for some questions. Marjolein, are there any questions to Ronald?
Well, there is a question about if you know of any results from the table yet.
8 tables are being used right now in the juvenile institution. And they are used for several occasions, for several types of discussions, of course. It has not been quantified. So we did this user test, we did the real life test. The outcomes are very positive. They are really engaged and involved. But there was no budget left to do a really thorough investigation and research.
Because what is the end goal? Because you spoke in your talk about more effective way of treatment, or
Yeah.
so what is the goal of the table?
Well, when you are in prison, we discovered that it's kind of hopeless when you're in prison. So you have those treatment programs, but what does it really do to you? And that's the beauty of gamification. If you have a challenge, something you put your mind on, you get a reward, and then you see a little bit of progress, it helps you get an outlook to the future that you have after prison. So that's the general idea, and that's a very broad idea, of course. And then we focused on one subject. Let's pick out, let's focus on the group discussions, because they had this feeling, and they not only a feeling, but they knew that in group discussions, it's so hard to get those boys keep focused on the subjects.
Yes, and having a real dialogue with each other.
Yeah, and one of the typical things is that there's some kind of group hierarchy, of course. So there's always a group leader, and he determines what the behavior of the whole group is in a group discussion. So he is talking, the other ones are listening, and they are kind of copying his ideas and his thoughts and his opinion.
Yeah, yeah.
So in this setting, you have to choose by yourself.
Yes, so you cannot wait till the leader actually choose, but you have to do it before that.
Yeah.
And did you also, are you involving like behavioral experts in your team? Do you have behavioral experts, psychologists?
Yeah, those are based on existing treatment programs. So it's validated like that. We only used another way to involve them with them. So using some kind of other media instead of reading out a situation and how would you react. We just turned it around and so it's
the integration actually of existing programs.
That's right.
Together with your techniques.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, great. Marjolein?
Yes, I have someone from Zoom joining us to ask a question.
Okay, great.
Wow.
Yes, live with us. Hi.
Hello.
Welcome in the show. Yes, what is your question?
So I would like to know how you motivate the young inmates to participate to the table sessions or to use the table.
Yes, how do you motivate them? Is it a question for you, Ronald, or maybe for Burg? Ronald?
Yeah, whoever wants to answer.
Well, it's part of the program. This group discussions is part of the program. Just the way that the group discussions are being held is now changed by using this interactive table.
Yeah, so it's not on a voluntary basis or something.
No, it's
They
part
have
of,
to.
They kind of have to. When you are in prison, you have to do some things like those treatment programs. So that's the typical thing of motivating them. They have to do these group discussions, and being in those group discussions, they're not that motivated because they think it's boring and it's like being taught, having lessons. But in this setting, you see they lean forward and they actually want to do their best. And so in that way, they're way more motivated and much more involved with the subject. Does that answer your question?
Okay, yes.
Okay,
Okay,
thank you.
great, and thank you for
Thanks.
being live with us. Another question, Marjolein?
Yes, I have several questions. Why were you not allowed to involve the youngsters in the development of the product?
Because those are the rules of an imprisonment. We were not able to talk with them or interact with them. We were not able to speak with them, and because they have to be separate from the outside world. And I'm from the outside world, of course. But Burg and his team are very much involved with those boys. So they know how they feel, and they really helped us forward to get a sense of what it is like, how they are like, what kind of boys are those. And we made several of personas just to get a grip on what their characteristics are.
Yeah, so it was a close collaboration with the dienst sociale inrichting.
Absolutely, that's the only way that you can solve this problem.
And is it because you're talking about boys all the time?
Yeah.
Is it only boys, or is it
Mainly boys, yeah.
But the game is it gender neutral, or is that not important?
That's
or
not really an issue, no.
It's not
And
an issue.
the content can be changed by Burg or the other coaches, and so they can mold it in a way that suits the topics that they want to discuss. So
gender neutral, or that's not really a topic. And what about culture?
well, of course, they have to. They're dealing with all kinds of cultures, so they have to be very aware of the culture and the backgrounds of those boys. And trust me, I've got a lot of respect for the people who are working in the prisons. Those men like Burg and women like Burg, are so much involved with the wellness and the well-being of those boys, and they're not being treated like they're not treated easily, but they really understand what their situation in life is, and their lives are mainly very hard. There's mostly almost a reason why they ended up in this place, of course.
Yeah. It's not an easy life they had and still will have, of course.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much. I look for 1 minute in at our audience here live. No questions from you. Okay, one, Sven. Quickly to our last question. Then the microphone is coming. There it is.
Are the delinquents not allowed to give points to each other? Because now it's again Big Brother who's giving the points and the ratings, and I think wouldn't it be interesting that they have this discussion amongst each others?
This also happens, but there's one in control who hands out the points. That's
but why not taking the control away? I think that's the interesting experiment.
That's right. But the interaction between the members on the table helps them to think about the solutions and think about the motivation and et cetera, et cetera. And sometimes it happens that one says, well, I think that's a very good reason why you did that. And so they stimulate each other. And so it's not, there's not one boss on the table.
Oh, no, I mean...
Burg was the boss.
Burg was the boss, and I think it's interesting when he's not that bossy. I mean, maybe he played a little bit the boss over here, but I think, you understand?
Yeah, he helps to stimulate the discussion, but later on the discussion forms itself.
Okay.
Well, nice suggestion. Ronald van Schaik, thank you very much for actually sharing this great project. Give him a hand, Ronald van Schaik, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Because we talked about what's happening in the world of research or design, and now it's time to talk about what's happening in the world of research. And my next two guests are Nynke Tromp. She's a researcher and social designer at Delft University of Technology, and Kees Dorst, also a researcher and social designer of University of Technology in Sydney. Nynke and Kees, welcome at Drive 2020. Well, first of all, Nynke, you did you're making actually an inventory of research at the crossovers between the creative industry and the safety sector on fighting subversive crime. You will talk about this with us, but first of all, what do you think of the table? Because you were one of the participants.
Yes, I think it's a very engaging way to discuss the topics that are discussed.
Yeah.
And we are actually setting up a course. It's design-driven innovation, in which we should develop future concepts for people with imprisonment and the reintegration to society. So I was already thinking like, this could be an outcome of the course.
Okay, perfect. So a great example of social design, actually.
Yeah.
Yes. But now your research. What can you tell us about the crossovers?
Yes. Well, the research is still at its infancy. So we started just a few weeks ago. But we're wanting to understand like what is happening now at the crossovers between the creative industries and the safety sector, but specifically on the topic of subversive crime, because we think that the creative professional has a lot to offer at that in that domain. So maybe it's good to start off with a movie that explains a little bit what subversive crime is and why creatives could have value there.
Wonderful. It is in
Zie
Dutch.
jij de onderwereld in de bovenwereld? Ondermijning, ook wel ondermijnende criminaliteit genoemd, is aan de orde van de dag. Zichtbaar en onzichtbaar. Hoe onder- en bovenwereld met elkaar Criminelen hebben zich ingezogen in onze bloedvrije cocaïne bestaat niet. Tientallen criminele netwerken in drugs- en mensenhandel actief. Maar wat is nou ondermijning? Bij ondermijning vermengt de onderwereld zich met de bovenwereld. Criminelen maken hierbij gebruik van faciliteiten in de bovenwereld voor hun illegale praktijken. Als één overheid werken we samen in de strijd tegen ondermijning. Hierbij hebben we de hulp van partners en de maatschappij nodig. Met elkaar en met kennis bestrijden we de ondermijning. Download daarom nu de app Ondermijning. Daarin komen kennis en actualiteit samen. De app is actueel, informatief, en uitdagend. App-ondermijning, onmisbaar in de strijd tegen ondermijning.
Yes. So we're talking about subversive crime, which is really about the illegal use of societal services in our societal infrastructure, but that actually needed to actually run an organizational business. And I think it's really that area that is interesting for designers, because then you deal with other people that are not core criminals themselves, but actually lend these services and are not always aware of the fact that they are supporting.
So what kind
crime.
of organizations are actually?
It can be a farmer that rents out his shed to somebody, but that somebody that makes a drugs lab out of it. It can be a casino employee that just shifts money to fishes and back, and thereby supports money laundering. So there are different elements, banks, real estate.
Yeah. So those kind of organizations.
And I think it's interesting. A lot of that crime. Let's say that we developed a whole sort of police system to police public spaces. A lot of this kind of crime, all the crime that is growing, is actually indoors. It's hidden in a way. So that's where a police system that just looks sort of the cops on the street doesn't help at all.
Yeah. So what do you mean with indoors? Because if you talk about banks or
a lot of it is sort of people behind a computer somewhere, and you're not allowed to just go into their house and check out what they're doing.
Okay, and the police is not actually online enough.
Well, it is.
It's not visible.
It's not so visible, although people do see it. But then those people should be encouraged to actually do something about it. So I think it's part of a bigger trend. You also see it, let's say, in the care sector, where sort of, as a welfare state, we've pulled care out of society, said, okay, we're the government, we're the professionals, we're the public sector, we do this for you. So don't start amateuring around, don't do that, blah, blah. Then you see that the care sector is actually way too expensive. So there's this whole movement of trying to give care back to society. Mantelzorgers, etc., caring for each other, being supported by the government. And I think what Nynke is talking about is the same kind of thing, but then not about care, but about safety. But that's a much more tricky thing to be doing, because...
But I don't see the link immediately between care and safety, so what do you mean with that?
In this case, you say, okay, people know that this is happening, but they're not reporting it. Or people know that this is happening, but they're sort of looking away a little bit. So we want those people to become more active. But then the question is, what do you mean by becoming more active?
Yeah, because people are reluctant, they are maybe afraid if they see it, or they don't know how to handle.
Yeah, or it's not my problem, so I'm just looking away. Or people
it's my family member.
Yeah, or it's my family. Or people may be over-eager. So you get a kind of sort of... what you don't want is to sort of give, let's say, the monopoly on violence that the police has in society, like we use violence when it's needed, when something's wrong, we can correct it in that way. But you don't want sort of the times of, let's say, Rembrandt's Night Watch to come back, where you've got groups of citizens of Amsterdam, basically vigilantes with
marching
guns, around, trying to keep the order.
Exactly, because it's actually a huge problem. Subversive crime. It's invisible. So what are the lines that you see that can help?
Yeah, well I think the analogy with the healthcare system is in that sense interesting, because indeed you want to somehow engage private organizations, citizens, in reporting the crime, seeing the cues that are happening, but also not engaging themselves within those gray areas, shady areas of activities. And that is something that designers are good at, building the bridges to people, giving a human perspective on the topic, and really address people with their concerns. Because I think, with big respect for the app, it's still, sending the details, the facts, and really trying to bridge that, bring that to the other side.
Yeah.
Well,
but I was also thinking with that app, is it in my interest actually to be involved?
Yeah, yeah. Why would you download the app?
Exactly.
And that's the bridge that designers can bring in. And the other parallel with the healthcare system is that our legal system is very reactive. It's built up. You can only come into action when illegal facts have already taken place. And I think in that sense,
sense, just like the healthcare system is now moving more to a preventive side, designers can also expand the repertoire of our safety sector to also be proactive, anticipate future crime, and then develop instruments to counteract that or prevent that.
But doing that safely is a real design question, because again, if you go to the extreme side, you can't prevent everything. And prevention always sounds good, it sounds nice, nobody's against prevention. But if you sort of talk to Hans Boutelier and other people, he's talking about, okay, actually when a crime has happened, you're reacting to a fact. And you have to right what's been wrong, etc., etc. If you're starting to prevent things, you're reacting to something that you imagine might happen.
Yes.
And there's no end to that, of course. Anything might happen, as long as people are sort of imaginative.
Yes, and we are very imaginative at the moment.
Yes,
because we have the complot thinkers as well now, and a lot of things are changing.
Yeah, so conspiracy theory, etc., etc. So where is that border where you say, well, this is actually valid prevention because something needs to be prevented, or no, this is somebody who's just too imaginative and it's not going to happen and we're not going to prevent it.
But Kees, can you give us an example? Because you are actually, you're famous, or you're well known for your frame innovation model, a problem approach that has been successful in Sydney, solving the nightlife violence. Because how is that frame, how is it working?
Well, it's almost a question that I have for Nynke too, in a way. Because a lot of the things that we've been doing as designers up to this point in this crime safety area was about just opportunistic crime, little things. People aren't bad, but they see an opportunity that they shouldn't see and they do something that's wrong. Crimes and misdemeanors on a small scale. What you're talking about here, in this case, is organized crime. So there's not, the design normally works by seduction. People have a kind of behavior and you want them to have another behavior, so you're pulling them in that direction. You're understanding what their values are.
But essentially, they're good people.
Yeah, sort of the Wouter Brechtman.
Exactly, that's the assumption.
That's the assumption. Well, in this case, it's organized crime. It's their business model. So
how can you deal with that then?
How could you deal with that from a design perspective? It's not.
I think we're not tackling organized crime directly, but we're actually trying to deteriorate the conditions in which these organized crime organizations can really.
You're trying to make it harder.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. There's a really funny movie, by the way, from Arjan Lubach about a strategy that's actually bashing the criminals to get their duties done. But that's something.
But what are that conditions then around it?
Yeah, so that's indeed focusing on where they recruit new people to get into the business, so to speak, and to make sure that that's not a seductive path to take. So that's the prevention that is nothing to do with conspiracy theories, but
what
also
can a social
making it
designer add to that then? What is the contribution of a social designer to avoid?
Well, that's right. Then you're actually making a crossover with other areas like social work and other sectors of our society. But just to ensure that you deliver possibilities for people to engage in society in different ways. Often the decision to go into that path, is of course fed by other frustrations and
yes, exactly.
So that path is also, but also the help of bankers, farmers, neighbors who just do this. Also engaging them is something that you're not targeting the core criminal, but you're targeting the people who are maybe in essence in the core good, but just take easy
so
choice.
you need the society around it actually to help fighting the subversive crime. Marjolein, are there questions?
Not yet at this moment.
Not yet.
I think people are trying to think.
From our audience here live? No? So can you then maybe elaborate a little bit more about those lines? Because I also read that we have to change in a way.
Yeah, well, what we've now developed, and I also invite everybody from other TUs and creatives, if they have input for this inventory, because, like I said, we just started. But what we see is that, okay, the safety sector has to make a few shifts, or the change needs to happen, and the creative professional might help. And there are several aspects, and we've touched upon a few of them, like how to engage citizens into discussion, how to maintain the relationship then, so that goes on like from the point that somebody reports something, which is, well, a high threshold to get to. People don't do it easily. There are numbers that said that people don't report things easily.
Why is that actually?
Well, it is a threshold somehow to also to notice it, but then when you notice it, then to call the police, that's something that people don't do so quickly.
No.
And that's a problem. But of course, when people do it, then also you need to have a system in place that gives feedback upon those reports, because that's also, if you then took the bravery to report something and you don't hear anything about it anymore, that's not so fulfilling.
Yeah.
So you need to maintain those relationships. So that goes from a usability designer that can help out there to actually also understand indeed like how you might involve them in detecting the cues that hint towards subversive crime.
Yeah.
And what we also think is that the sector is quite specialist focused. So you have criminologists, crime experts, you have legal experts. But if the repertoire expands, like more into the anticipatory approach, then you might also need to fundamentally shift your whole position as a sector. And how to do that is also an important question.
Yeah, because how are they actually welcoming the social designers? So how is the safety world, how they are welcoming you guys? Are they waiting for you? Are they opening the doors? Do they bring you in?
There is a real sort of, they know that sort of working in the way that they do now is not going to tackle this problem. Otherwise it would have been tackled before. So they are looking around for other kind of practices. But it's very tentative. It's still very, okay, this is really different. What does this actually do? What you actually see in these organizations often is that the people on the ground have already have parts of the solution already. Mm-hmm. It's not sort of creatives coming in, redesigning everything,
no,
because there's nothing.
It's not a zero starting point.
No, but you often see that people on the ground that are dealing on the ground with these issues have their workarounds around the official things in the organization. There's already practices that have been developed up there. And one of the nice things of sort of being a social designer in this kind of space is actually tapping into that expertise, bringing it together, adding what you can bring process-wise, so that it actually starts to have more impact than just individuals trying to do their best and finding workarounds within the system.
Yeah. And do you have any tips for social designers who are watching now, or maybe the safety industry, about the way you communicate with each other? Because I can imagine that you don't speak the same language, and that's sometimes hard to find each other. So do you have any tip? Because it seems that you like to manage.
Especially so, I've been working on criminal justice systems and those kind of things, and mostly in Australia, but also a bit in the Netherlands. And what you see is the system is made that the police does something, then the judiciary comes in, and those are all forces that are countering one another, because you want to reach justice in the end, and we do that by having lawyers and having officier van justitie, etc. So it's all very conflictual, and there's no sense of it, how a person travels through that system, or what their experience actually is, or somebody who's reporting that nothing comes back because you report to the police, and what happens is later in the judicial system, and the police has nothing to. The police also don't know what happens with the people they pick up.
Yes.
So there's a lot of things that can be won by just starting to map out these journeys in a sense, and then see what the experiences are, and picking up the good points and the bad points and the missing feedback loops, etc., and start designing around that.
It's nice, because I think that Ronald, he also mentioned that journey actually, to make that journey visible, all those different steps that you're taking.
And it just hasn't been looked at in that way.
No. Nynke?
Yeah, well, what he also said, what I like, was trust the process, because, as a creative, you don't know always yet what comes out of the process. So to be very explicit about the methods and the steps that you're taking can also really help to give that certainty that the safety sector needs, that they're stepping into a journey that will lead to something valuable.
So they're more focused on safety. So, so make the steps visible.
Yeah, concrete,
Yes.
Yeah.
And there is a question.
Yes,
Marjolein.
I would like to have a Zoomer join us again.
Okay, wonderful.
Question.
There she is. Welcome. Please tell us your name first.
Yes, my name is Nynke van der Bijl. Hello, Kees. Hello, Nynke.
Hello, Nynke.
Hi. I have a question for Kees, but Nynke can also join in if she wants to. So you were talking about organized crime, and that organized crime is not something for, maybe not something for designers to tackle. So basically, you're suggesting that there's a limit to what we can do with design. So as a designer, when do you know what that limit is? What are the types of challenges that maybe we should not be tackling?
Well, so it's sort of, for me at least, sort of design works by seduction. You're trying to create more of what you want rather than go into countermeasures. The problem with countermeasures in society is that you're isolating people, you're actually cutting off communications in a sense. Like sort of if you have a public space where things are happening that you don't like, how can you help people change their behavior, understanding their values, understanding what they're trying to achieve and find a better way to do it, which is what we did in King's Cross in Sydney. The other way would be to say, okay, we need more countermeasures, we need more police, we need more rules, etc., etc. And I think there is a feeling behind design that, or a trust behind it, a trust in people behind design in a sense. So you're trying to avoid the countermeasures as much as you can. And so,
but when do you reach your limitations?
It's part of sort of saying, okay, can we understand what is happening here deeply? Can we understand people's values deeply? Can we sort of creatively think of other ways that those values can be embodied or that the behavior can be changed? Let's say, for instance, in King's Cross, one of the things was that there's violence in King's Cross because people actually like to bash each other a little bit. It's always sort of...
That's a big square in Sydney, yeah?
Yeah, yeah. So it's sort of groups of young men that actually come out there because they've got this hierarchy thing going on within their groups and between groups, and they sort of bash each other a little bit. And then you say, okay, what's happening there? Why is the violence there? It's actually about competition rather than about violence. So it turns out if you sort of give them all kind of stuff for urban sports, sort of chasing light spots, blah, 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 whatever, they happily start doing that because it is about the competition. It's not about the violence.
It's about deep understanding. You say that is actually, you always have to check, do I understand it deeply? And then I can say yes to the assignment, or I can yes to my profession.
Yeah, and you do need, I mean, I think the project that we just saw was quite heroic because I would always only take on a job if you had direct contact with the people that you're working with, with the target group, because you need to get to these deep values. Otherwise, you can't reconsider things because you can't give people other values, but you can look at their values and try to embody it in a different way.
Okay.
That's when it becomes a design question.
Nynke, the last minute is for you. Do you want to add something to that?
No, I was completely satisfied with the answer.
Okay, completely satisfied. But what about if you cannot reach your target audience?
I was thinking about that. I mean, of course, you need to get a deep understanding. I don't know if that necessarily requires actual contact. I'm not so convinced of that yet, but I do feel that really organized crime, that is, I would also say that's super difficult for a designer to get into.
Yeah, but it was really wonderful talking to you guys, and I hope that the social designers can really make that crossover because it's needed in our world. Thank you very much, Nynke and Kees.
Okay.
Thank you. Woo. And for the people back home and also the people here live at the FNR, we have a little break, 10 minutes break, so grab a cup of coffee or some water. And don't forget to fill in the poll question because Marjolein is waiting for your answers. See you back around 12. Yes, welcome back at Drive Safety. We ended actually with a poll question for our audience back home. Marjolein, quite a difficult poll, I think, for our audience.
Yeah, it was a bit complicated, also because I think, well, the question was a bit not so much in line with what we just talked about in a way.
But it was about the research,
It
of
was about
Nynke.
the research, yes, definitely. But what I hear is what people triggers the most as one of her 4 key lines was from a specialist mindset. to new perspectives by involving more and different key individuals. I thought that was a really important outcome. So come together with more different types of people to think about this whole issue.
Yes, and if they want to know more about the research of Nynke, they can actually check the website, I think, from ClickNL.
Yes, definitely. Or they can just email me, Marjolein@clicknl.nl, and I can link them if they want.
Marjolein@clickNL, because it's a very interesting research, but it's also bigger than we can discuss in those 15 minutes. Yes. Okay, well, thank you. And of course, for our audience here live, but also back home, please keep on questioning and adding all your suggestions to us. And we move on, because also at Drive 2020, every day, we are looking at what's happening now in the world of the design embassies. And today, we work together with the Embassy of Safety. The embassies are actually, they are for the future alliances of partners working on social challenges. And together with designers, they work on solutions and develop new perspectives to the world of tomorrow. And today, the representative of the Embassy of Safety is Dries van Wagenberg. And we're going to listen to Dries.
So, hello. I have to start first. I should have listened better to Ronald, who this morning told us about the 4 Ds, and the last D was deadline. I missed that deadline, and that means I will have quite a short presentation, visual presentation, together with my story. It's quite out of my comfort zone, because normally we are used to actually talk around images. So please bear with me while I have a more wordy presentation for you today. So first, the Embassy of Safety. The Embassy of Safety investigates how design and policy can come together in the safety domain. Together with designers, policymakers, and experts, we look for new ways of thinking and fresh solutions. To do so, we work together in a broad coalition of partners. Vereniging Nederlandse Gemeenten, Aanjaagteam Ondermijning, Reclassering, and OM Spaces. As part of this embassy, we are using our program What If Lab, of which I am program manager, as a method to initiate collaborations. In What If Lab, we challenge businesses, governments, and the design world to come up with concrete answers to current issues. Businesses and service organizations get the opportunity to work closely with design professionals. Designers can set their teeth in socially relevant, complex challenges. And What If Lab organizes the process towards successful partnerships. In 2019 and 2020, we worked on 8 newly initiated projects within the framework of the What If Lab for the Embassy of Safety. We worked on 2 formats. What If Lab Live, where 3 design teams use Dutch Design Week with its body of visitors and experts attending sessions in the embassy as a panel to gather insight and feedback in the concept development phase. Normally, I would show you here the embassy and the designers really interacting with the public to work on their designs. The second project we initiated was Mayor Meets Designer. They were asked for urgent questions in the field of safety, for which there are no ready-made solutions yet, existing within the municipality. But what if you approach the question from a designer's perspective? And what if the designer gets a chance to observe a mayor? We did this with 5 designers. Furthermore, in 2020, 5 design studios have worked on design research for the National Police, giving insights on the question, what do different user groups think the police organization would look like in 2025? So now that I've sketched the background, where do I really want to talk about? What If Lab as a tool for research by design in the domain of safety. Even though safety is highly complex and normative subject, people working in the safety domain are tied to an extremely systemic approach. Tightly knit to checks and balances, rules and regulation, it does not pay off to wander away from the predefined path. As safety is a commodity that is needed to give us trust in our society so that we can function within with our guards down. Keeping the system in place and predictable is expected. As long as nothing happens that disrupts our feeling of safety, the safeguards and people entrusting our actual safety are not needed. But once these expectations are not met, our reflex is to demand a stricter, more rigid set of rules and enforcement of these rules. As a result, flexibility, innovation, and experimentation are not terms typically associated with the safety domain, and people working within it are rarely encouraged to take a different route. With experimentation comes failure, and failure is typically seen as unforgivable, as the consequences can have far-reaching impact on real people. The result, however, is that maintaining the system is promoted, and there is little room to make decisions that break protocol or radical different thinking. And with an ever-rising demand for safety and controllability of an acceptable level of risk, the government, as main supplier of safety, has taken over our personal responsibility, transforming it into a given for the general public, instead of something we should work on as a society as a whole. So how can the practice of design carve out space in this rigid domain? Can the uncertainty and outsider role that lay within the act of design itself become a tool to break open the safety domain and develop new models to collaborate on unexpected solutions? And if so, how do we organize this collaboration? We think that design research, or better, researching by design, can be put to use to develop new approaches to complex questions within this conservative safety domain. By taking the outsider role as a designer, mapping the system, and understanding and empathizing with the players in the field. And of course, what designers do best, using the design process to just start doing. Last year, we started this journey of bringing outside viewpoints and directions for new approaches to the floor. Within different projects in the Embassy of Safety, as part of World Design Embassies, the potential of design in the safety domain is being explored. The Embassy helps to provide the much-needed safe space for experimentation that we find is needed in this point of time. Our goal for the upcoming years is to transform this so-called safe space by working on actual cases in the field into knowledge that will aid participating organizations and designers to make design and design methodologies a trusted tool for change in the field. To attain this goal, we have identified different steps to take within the Embassy of Safety in the coming years. So, first, create opportunities for designers to work on safety, to grow knowledge and develop specific design tools in this relatively new field for design. Second, build a network of organizations and individuals in the safety domain that are interested to adapt design as a method to explore new directions and solutions created from an outside view. And third, create room, and I mean finance and people, active in the safety domain to initiate and scale up new developments with designers and outside partners. So, how does this translate into the real world? Working on these challenges and having the position to observe from an outside position, we have come up with some insights that we are using to develop our upcoming What If Lab within the Embassy. I'm going to take you through these insights. There would have been some projects that we have done, and you could have that illustration. But I'll make sure the presentation is posted somewhere, so if there's interest, there can be looked at. The first insight is there is a willingness to think outside of the box. The domain is not as conservative as that it likes to present itself. When taken along in the process, radical ideas are accepted as possible new opportunities. Human-centered design approaches are very much needed in the field. For the designers, putting the people you develop solutions for in the center of the process seemed like a natural fit. But what was surprising was how new this approach of direct contact with people as a tool to develop new insight was for the partners. Design can bring a new visual language into the safety domain. The domain is generally very wordy, like I am. The more visual way of working can make processes, goals and ideas less abstract and stimulate collaboration. Then, design processes can detect roadblocks in the system. The process of research, concepting, prototyping, and iterating sometimes comes to a stop because the current system is not ready for this process. This can be used to find glitches in the system that prevent improvement. Then, be prepared to confront the system. There are a lot of systematic, there are lots of parts in the system that might not seem very logical to outsiders. Designers should be prepared to deal with these and sometimes find a way to reframe or work around them. Ownership is important for impact and scale up. Organizations are typically not set up for explorative design processes. Being a part of a team is almost always an extra on top of other work. To effectively scale up once the idea is there, hard work is needed. Not the design studios, but the organizations in the field should have the opportunity to take ownership and make further development possible. And we need design studios with experience to guide the clients, we found out. With the complexity of the field and organizations from within the safety domain still very much needed to be taken along in the design process, design studios with a broader experience typically understand the world of organization better and can thereby navigate through likely obstacles from experience. We think the more disruptive design agencies should also become part of it, but for now, this is in this stage, this is still quite important. So, what's next? What can we do to make make neighborhoods more resilient, so that there's less temptation and opportunity for young people to become a victim of subversion? That's the next question that we will be working on in the embassy. In What If Lab Embassy of Safety 2020 and 2021, we will investigate how the recruitment of young people for criminal activities can be prevented in vulnerable neighborhoods. How do you stop people from being tempted by the appeal of the criminal world? In the project, we will focus on young people between the age of 15 and 25 who are vulnerable to be tempted by the image of quick cash and fast cars. A first drug transport is a small step, but the way back, once you are part of the criminal circuit, I think I hope to talk about you later, with you about that later. Once you are part of the criminal circuit, it's often long. So the seemingly innocent choice to participate once can have major consequences in the long run. How can we offer these young people insight and tools to choose an alternative path? And perhaps even more important, how do we do this in a way that fits into the lifestyle of these young people? In the upcoming years, we will collaborate with partners, stakeholders, and design studios in 3 different neighborhoods, develop new concepts. Dutch Design Week 2021 will be a stepping point to talk to you more next about what we've come up and found out, and we hope to do that with a lot of different partners and researchers. Thank you.
Thank you, Dries. Join me here at the table for some questions. Thank you for your story.
Yes.
And your words. First of all, let's see, Marjolein, do we have any questions for Dries?
Well, I have a question. What would be a subject in this field that you would love to start a new lab on? What would be your dream subject?
Well, I think the question of the organized crime would be very interesting, because I think the empathy and way of thinking of designers can put them very much also in the shoes of organized crime. And in that way, designers can I hope, would be able to go in that mindset and from there develop also new insights and maybe a way to subvert subversion.
Subversion, yeah. That's interesting.
Cool. Okay. Are there questions from our audience here live at the FNR? No, because actually what I was also wondering, and we also already talked about it with Nynke and Kees, and it is the limitations of the profession of social designers. So what is your opinion about that question? So, I mean, safety is a very complex topic. Right. A lot of different disciplines are also involved. So what would you say? When do you reach your own limitation in this field?
Yes, well, we're also a little bit hesitant to work in this domain because you can come over as knowing or as design thinking you have the solution to everything.
Yeah, so we're going to fix this.
Yes,
that mentality. Yes.
So the great thing is at the moment you are working with people in the domain using their what we've heard before, experience and their way of working. That is something that's really rich, and that's when things happen, and that's when designers can thrive. So I don't know if there's a limitation, but that's maybe a thing that has to be there to make real impact and have projects that work.
Yes, because on one hand, that's the strength of social design, that they really can fix things, but that's also the weakness. So how do you avoid creating that image of fixers? Of fixers,
yes. So I think that's through the collaboration, being open that you don't have the answers. And in that way, I think also what we're building up. So what we see is some of the projects that we've done in the embassy, we've walked into these hurdles that we've had. And now by learning of these, we have the opportunity in our new labs to kind of bring it a bit further. And a very big question that I find in the labs at the moment is how do we come from concept ID to the scale up and really implementation. So that is something that's super important, I think, for the design field right now.
Yeah, and on that topic, you also want to have some contributions from the audience. There is a question from Daan here live at the FNR. Sven is coming with the mic.
Where's the mic? Hi, my name is Daan van Eyck. I'm a co-director of Design United. Very happy to work together with the embassies and also in the new labs. But can you tell maybe a little bit more about the projects you did till now?
Yes.
Made a little bit more concrete, because you talk about insights, you want to make a next step, but I'm interested in what were these projects.
Yeah, can you pick out one or two?
Yes, so one of the projects was with afdeling buitengewone zaken, and they looked at how can we have a different look at sex work. And while working with these organizations, they found out they were always thinking from repression, and they switched around that in how can we think of a positive way of stimulating the positive and the good things happening and using that as an example. And what they did then is, together with Riek Limburg, started finding out, okay, but where are the places that we want to condone sex work and where it's been done well? And can we find, make a website, make a collection of these examples and bring that out so that we're as justice, or people in safety domain, not only working on repression, but also bringing up the examples of how it should be and where good sex work happens. So that's one story, which is quite interesting because that's also where the system have blocked. So when
But how so you say social designers are actually working on the attitude we have about sex workers? So we actually associate that with repression,
right?
But there are a lot of sex workers that are doing that in from a free mindset, from a free will. So what is the contribution of a social designer? What is a social designer actually doing, or what is the product that they develop?
Yes, so it's bringing up, because now there's no real structure of how to find the people that are within this system of doing it right. So as a client, you don't know. And by bringing that up in good sex work brothels, and but also on this online platform, and the designers also went to kinky.nl, to really the places where these users really come, talk to them, and with them together found out, but how do we get you to understand this and find the places where you should go then?
Okay, great project. And maybe the last one?
Yeah, so another project was about subversion in Maastricht. And there the designers really started the dialogue of, okay, what do you need to be able to melden, to report a crime? And they found out that people are very willing, but they are not very able to report the crimes. So they started working with the community and also with the people in the municipality to really go and make a construct. It's a small shop now, but where people can talk to people in the neighborhood without feeling they are directly reporting, but they're telling about what's happening in the neighborhood. So it's kind of a subversion that you don't feel like, oh, I'm telling something, it's doing
snitching.
it. Yeah, it's not snitching, but more having a conversation of what's going on.
Okay. Well, wonderful. Thank you for your question, Daan. One question.
Yes, well,
online?
First I have a very short one. Have you ever thought about working with professional crime organizations? I don't think that's really the point yet. And also, I have
but what was the question?
Did you ever thought about cooperating with organized crime?
Okay,
So
well,
with
did you?
crime organizations.
Yeah, well, we thought about it. I think it's a weird moral dilemma. On the one hand, you could sort of learn so much about it. On the other hand, you're also. I think we designers could be super good criminals. I mean, we have a creativity. We can work around rules.
Yeah.
So it's a way to think forward. But on the other hand, really together.
But is that a moral? Is it a moral limit?
Yeah, there's a moral limit.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you.
And as I said, I also have one person from Zoom who would like to.
Oh yes, always. We always have time for live Zoomers, so come in the show. Hi, welcome.
Hi, everybody. Well, good to be here this way. Dries, I have a question because, as you know, we've worked together on a couple of the projects that you mentioned before. And I totally agree that collaboration with the organizations is key because as designers, we can help them big time to see things in a different way. But these organizations have very domain-specific knowledge that is super important in order to understand the situation or develop the right solutions. And maybe since you know all the different projects that the embassy has done so far, how do you think we can use their domain-specific knowledge even better?
Wow, yeah.
Well, I think that's not so much up to me as it is up to you. And I have to compliment you because you already did a very good job in that. But I think that's exactly the role of designers to be like the glue between these organizations. And Nele did that with Muses very well for the question of Police 2025 by organizing this dinner together with all these stakeholders that normally wouldn't talk in this way together in a very informal setting. And yes, so I think we need you guys. And we try to facilitate that as good as possible, so that.
And what do you mean with you guys? What kind of guys
and girls?
And girls, but what kind of guys and girls are the?
So the designers that enjoy that and love to work with people and bring them together and find that social glue. So this domain, I think. If you get frustrated with people really fast,
don't go there. So you have to love people. Yeah, you also have to love complex information, and then it's absolutely your field. Yeah. Well, thank you. Was this an answer to your question, actually?
Well, I think not really, Dries. I'm sorry. It was, of course, not my point to tell you all that you need us, but I thought that within each of those projects, it was still very difficult to get on the same level. For example, after the Designer Meets Mayor project in Zaanstad, we've been talking with many organizations together at Comensa, in order to see how we could do more around the subject. And it was very difficult for us to get past the domain-specific talks and knowledge. And
but was it because of the lack of knowledge, or was it because of the lack of communication vocabulary?
No, because
for
we
example?
were there at the table. But what I noticed is, for example, when I compare a project that we do about headsets to the project that we do around safety, it's much more difficult to get on the same level and be a full partner as a designer with these organizations. And I think all of us designers could help each other out and share their tips, tricks, knowledge, maybe ways to how do you do this within such specific organizations.
Yeah. Right. So what you actually need is a database with tips, or a platform where you can exchange best practices. Maybe is that maybe?
Yeah.
Could it be a solution?
Yeah, it's a super nice solution, and I think that could be something that really works in this embassy. Not only focusing on the project and the context behind it, but also the takeaway that the designers and partners get from it. And that's again building on that, using the embassy to build knowledge.
Yes, and also empower the social designers with skills or with best practices, how they can be a good partner in this complex
this year
field.
we also have more time, also some more money, which also makes it easier to have that time to find each other and maybe get on a better level.
Well, thank you for joining us live at Drive. And Dries van Wagenberg, thank you very much for exploring the embassy. Thank you very much, Dries.
Thank you.
Yes, because we move on to our fourth theme, what will be happening in future research? Because the future, what knowledge will be developed and what knowledge do we need in order to design better and to make better designs? I'm going to talk about this topic with Annemiek Harder and Margriet Lenkens, both from the University of Groningen. Yes, and Annemiek and Margriet, you are with us with Zoom, live in the show. Well, welcome, first of all. The connection is okay, yeah?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, great, wonderful. Because together you work on a new research. Can you tell us a little bit more about the topic of that research?
Shall I start? Maybe to start off, we're from the Erasmus University in Rotterdam, not Groningen.
Oh, sorry, Rotterdam. We have Rotterdam live in the house. And I can't see your name because you are. Who is speaking now?
Margriet.
Margriet. Okay, Margriet.
Yeah,
yes.
Also from Erasmus University.
Yes.
So we're working together on this project. The project has not really started yet, so we don't have any results, but we can talk a bit about what we're going to do. And we designed this project. There was a call from the Dutch research agenda asking for innovative projects. And for this project, we work together. These are actually Annemiek's slides, so they can wait until she tells something. Thank you. But we work together with Young in Prison, which is an NGO that works with young people in the criminal justice system, of which you just saw a picture. And they do all sorts of projects, including very creative workshops. And one thing they also do is they have a youth lab, and the youth lab involves experienced experts, which are young people that have been incarcerated. And these experienced experts, they advise and they train professionals working in the criminal justice system, such as lawyers, prosecutors, but also probation officers. And our research will focus on the training they give to probation officers, so the people that help them when they come out of prison, for example.
Yes, so So the probation officers, that's actually the main focus, the training. How can they actually improve their skills working with juveniles? Because what makes their profession complicated?
I think the complicated thing is that they have a dual role. So they are supposed to monitor the young people that they work with. They are supposed to check if they stick to all the conditions of their punishment, sanctions. But on the other hand, they also want to support these young people to make sure they get back on the right track. So there's a complexity in the duality of the role they have.
Yes, and is that also part of your focus on your research?
Well, so the research is focused on a training that is given by these experienced experts to the probation officers. And in this training with methods of storytelling, but role-playing, they try to convey to these probation officers what it was like for them as, well, I don't like the word, but juvenile delinquents to be guided by a probation officer. So they share their experiences. They say what they liked and what they didn't like in the contact, in the communication with these probation officers. And then these probation officers did role-playing, they try to get better at communicating with these people, improve their skills, their empathy skills, their communication skills. They work on getting a better alliance or better cooperation with these young people.
Yeah, so you are actually allowed to involve the juveniles into your research. You can speak with them.
Yeah, but they're not in prison anymore. These are people that are doing courses for this NGO. So they're experienced experts. They also have other jobs, but they do this. I think the main idea is that it is important to listen to the people that have experiences with the criminal justice system to improve the criminal justice system.
Yes.
And I think throughout the last hour and a half, this topic came up sometimes, like involving the target population. I think that is key to improving the criminal justice system. And Young in Prison as an NGO does that in a very active way.
Okay, and what are the main outcomes? I mean, what is key in the training of these professionals?
Yeah, maybe Annemiek wants to say something about that, or
Annemiek from the University of Rotterdam.
Yes.
Erasmus.
What often is used as a strategy to change behavior or to try to change delinquent behavior, which was also mentioned already before in other presentations, is a punishment. Or then I have the first slide you can show, and it was already showed, I think, about putting young people with criminal behavior into prisons and then achieving short-term safety or it is a sort of superficial safety, actually, as a tactic or to change their behavior. So in this project of Margriet, and we know also from research that punishment or trying to correct their behavior is a very ineffective technique, actually, to change these behaviors. And we know from research that it is very important to build a good collaboration and build a very good relationship with young people. So this is also shown in the documentary of Carousel, which I also have a slide from. I don't know if you have seen it. It just received a golden calf also. So this is a nice documentary, the Carousel, showing how they try to build good collaborations with young people. And that is also in the project of Margriet. She really focuses on that topic. And we know from research that building a good relationship during treatment or during imprisonment is very important.
Yes.
To change it.
Yeah, so relationship, building up that relationship and empathy, that's very important. But isn't that already well known if you look at the education and the studies of this profession?
Yeah, it is well known, but you see in practice that well, it is not done, actually.
Okay, so it's in the education, but it's not done in practice.
Yeah, so we need to pay more attention to this and to try to learn from the perspective of the young people themselves, because that is the key to change. So we really need to focus more on that, and also to train professionals in how they can empathize with these young people. So that is the project of Margriet is really focusing on that. And we know that empathy is a key aspect for professionals, but it's very difficult because young people who show criminal behavior are different than us, at least. Well, they have different norms. They often have the same values, but they come from different families and they have very difficult backgrounds. So we really need to understand that better to change actually what is also important for them. So we need to look beyond the surface. So I have this picture of an iceberg. We often look at the tip of the iceberg. We often look at their criminal behavior, but we should look what's underneath it. We should look at what is their intrinsic drives, what are their motivations. And we should train professionals in how to get there. So how to find the drives and the motivations of the young person. So we know that they have, they know the young person have some reasons why they involved in criminal behavior. But there are also reasons for them why not to be involved in criminal behaviors or to make different choices.
Okay, thank you so far. Let's see if there are any questions from the people here live or the people back home. Marjolein, are there any questions for Annemiek and Margriet?
Well, there is a question on the progress of the probation officers in training. How do you monitor that, and how do you measure the effect of the YIP training?
Good question. So we want to measure several things. So the project hasn't started yet, and the first training will probably take place in 2021 because of Corona. But we have several methods of measuring what the training does. So first we want to look at the storytelling assignment that they use in the training to see what knowledge and experience do these youngsters convey to the professionals. We also are going to observe several trainings and look at empathy skills and collaboration or partnership during the role-playing assignment. And we also send out a survey to ask them what they did learn from this training and how do they use it in their practice to the professionals. And the last thing we do is we ask professionals, so probation officers that participate in the training, we ask them beforehand and after the training to send us audio recordings in which they reflect on their communication with the youngsters. So we ask them in their daily practice, they do not have a lot of time to spend on such a research, but we ask them to quickly make an audio recording in which they talk about how the interaction with a client they just met was. And we also know, I spoke to one of the experienced experts, and they say the initial contact is so important. Do you directly say you have to do this and this and this, or do you go into the conversation asking this client, what do you want with your life? And by empathizing, this must be hard for you. Those things are so important. So we want to get more insight into whether that actually happens more after they have done such a training.
Okay, well, Annemiek Harder and Margriet Lenkens, thank you very much for actually sharing this with us from the university, Erasmus University of Rotterdam. And thank you for being with us in the show. Give them a hand. Yes, we can give them a hand, although they are with us with Zoom. Because we go to our last speaker, Tabo Goudswaard. He will tell us more about the collaboration between organizations safety, the organization safety domain, and the creative professional. The floor is yours, Tabo Goudswaard.
Hello everybody, thank you for the invitation of having me. It's an honor to round up this Drive 2020 safety meeting. And I'll talk a bit about the collaboration between organizations in the safety domain and creative professionals. On the first slide, on the left-hand side, I pictured the building of the Ministry of Justice and Security. And on the right-hand side, you see a picture of the Rietveld Academy. It's the art school where I graduated. And you see the difference. The chaotic world of the Rietveld has actually a lot to offer to the safety domain. And what I always think is very helpful is to describe the two types of repertoire with which both worlds are working. My friend and colleague André Schaminet wrote it in his book, and on the left-hand side you see the safety repertoire, and it's of course about objective facts, trying to create definitions from a distance, and in the end, yeah, the facts, the truth is very important. Of course, we all recognize this. And on the right-hand side, we see the art and design domain. And there it's not about being objective, but being subjective. And we try to collaborate together. We participate. We try to inspire. And it's not about the truth and the facts, but it's about meaning. And of course, we all know this period we're living in is talked about as the world of the post-truth right now. So what have both worlds have to offer to each other, and what is the interesting thing of collaboration? So the right-hand side is interested to work on the left-hand side, and here you see a picture of me bashing a window in a gallery. At the art school, I was trained for the white cube strategy, to create work for a gallery or a white museum. With this performance, I had a talk like I'm doing right now, but at the moment I grabbed the hammer and bashed the window. I said, okay, artists, designers, we need to get out and try to have an impact on the real world. And there's also a promise for the left-hand side to collaborate with the right-hand side. This is a report, The Future of Jobs from the World Economic Forum. And here you see the skills which are needed for the upcoming jobs we will be having in the future. And there you see a lot of things on the growing part which are, in which artists and designers are very well trained. We all recognize the interest of the safety organizations to work with design thinking, for example. So we need to collaborate, and I'll talk a bit about the added value of the collaboration for both worlds. And I start with this project. It's called From the Police with Love: Social Design Politie. And we matched police officers together with artists and social designers. And the first thing that was promising about this collaboration was that, it was mentioned before today in the presentations. The safety world is very rigid, very static. We work with rules and systems, and for the Dutch police, they recently became a national police, so a big organization. So it was very systemic focus, and they're really eager to work with a more people-oriented approach. So this was a very promising thing, and they reflected on it on the Embassy of Safety last year. We did a session about it, and this is what they said.
Ik vond het interessant om te zien hoe dichtbij die social designers en politie bij elkaar gekomen zijn. Je ziet ook inspiratie naar allebei de kanten toe. Samen kunnen ze wel een soort andere dynamiek creëren. En dat is in deze projecten in ieder geval goed gelukt.
Je moet je voorstellen, de politie is de grootste publieke organisatie van Nederland met bijna 70.000 medewerkers. Die uit een reorganisatie komt, waardoor jarenlang het systeem heel erg centraal heeft gestaan. Het anders organiseren. En design, dat helpt om weer terug te gaan naar de bedoeling en de mens in dat systeem.
We denken dat wat behoefte binnen de politie er is om met social design aan de slag te gaan. Wijkagenten staan midden in de samenleving en we antwoorden daar allerlei vragen. Maar weten niet altijd op een creatieve manier daar naar te kijken. Kijken veel vanuit het systeem.
Doordat we alles zo efficiënt gemaakt hebben, is die veranderkracht eruit. We hebben alles zo goed georganiseerd dat het ook vastzit in vormen. Als de samenleving snel verandert, zul je als vakgebied zelf ook zo snel moeten kunnen veranderen. En om weer snel te kunnen veranderen, moet je terug naar de inhoud, moet je terug naar de waarden waar het eigenlijk over gaat. En dan weer opnieuw jezelf uitvinden. En daar kunnen social designers bij helpen, bij dat proces.
So this was last year's Embassy of Safety, for which I was the curator. And what we found out there was also this very strong thing designers do. They come up with new proposals, and which that's a legitimacy for safety professionals to act differently, and that's really a welcome thing for this collaboration. Here there was an example of this police officer, William Nijland, and Anne de Borre-Bakker, the social designer, who didn't wrote down tickets for speeding or something, but they wrote down tickets for approval. And they tried to catch people in the streets red-handed and caught them in the act. Another example is between the collaborations between designers and the mayor. This is the mayor of Gilserijen. And he worked together with Daan Wubbe. And they started from the insight that civilians are not really seeing a perspective for themselves, seeing a role for themselves in fighting subversive crime. So they made these clocks to increase awareness about the topic. Here they showed the rounded up wheat plantations on a very local scale, and they put it in the public space because Daan Wubbe said we don't need these clocks anymore. Everybody has a phone, so we can use these clocks to show the actual numbers, facts and figures of organized crime in the area. Okay, the third one I'd like to emphasize is the power of visual language. With these hard, wicked problems, it's really hard. It's really necessary to collaborate with each other, and visual language and design can facilitate that. There's a nice example of the red and the blue pills, which were inspired by the Matrix, and I really love the ostrich sticking its head in the ground, and it started a discussion between the pros and the cons of drug use.
We hebben gekeken naar de wereld van drugs in Nederland. Wat ons opvalt is dat we aan de ene kant het heel normaal vinden in Nederland dat er drugs gebruikt wordt. De samenleving vindt het normaal. De overheid wil hard optreden en de politie zit er eigenlijk tussenin. Het valt ons op dat mensen die drugs gebruiken, maar ook beleidsmakers, die hebben hun stokpaardjes. Zoals het moet legaal worden of we moeten het hard aanpakken. En niemand gaat met elkaar in gesprek. En wat wij eigenlijk willen is mensen confronteren met elkaars werelden. Bij de Embassy of Safety word je voor de keuze gesteld. Wil je de waarheid zien achter de drugswereld? Dat hebben we toepasselijk gedaan met een rode en een blauwe pil. Bij de rode pil dan ga je de confrontatie aan. Dan krijg je beelden te zien van wat de politie ziet van de drugswereld. Mensen vinden het goed om de wereld van drugs beter te leren kennen. Men ziet vaak alleen de positieve kant of de negatieve kanten. En mensen vinden het interessant om te zien hoe de politie er tegenaan kijkt. Ik merk dat het ook goed is om eerlijk te zijn over onze frustratie als politie, de vermoeidheid die we hebben en daarover in gesprek te gaan.
We have a little more to show. Is it okay, Anouschka, if I use a couple more minutes?
2.
Okay, I'll do my best. Thank you. Okay, this was also mentioned before. The earlier projects were more about awareness, but this is a really concrete, tangible way to show the possible futures and how to act upon it. I really love this example. It was a fragrance launched by the public prosecutors, and it has the scent of a drug lab, a synthetic drug lab. so people can recognize this while they're walking in the street. And I really like to show this project as well. It's called Hedon. It was initiated by a Rotterdam police officer. He saw the drug runners, the kids who are started to do it because of the money and because of the nice clothes they could wear because of that. And then he thought, okay, if that's the main thing, maybe I can offer them a different perspective. If they start designing and dealing clothes, they can text a message to the dealer and get a meeting in the car and then do the drug deal, but then with the clothes. So this is a nice video they made. It's a short one.
There's a thin line between your clean lifestyle and your filthy weekend. Between being raised to fight and fighting for your future. Between showing up for yourself and showing off to the world. Between looking like a boss and acting like a fool.
The last thing I'd like to emphasize is we inducted the research from the Art of Impact, and then we tried to find out how can you measure the impact of art. Okay, they came to this conclusion. The quality of the cooperation process is a better indication for impact than trying to measure it in an objective way. So I believe this is the new field of study, impact production. What are the conditions in which creative professionals and societal partners can work together redesigning systems? Recently I initiated, this is my final slide, I initiated together with a couple of others the Social and Creative Council. And these are the people in the Netherlands who are really the cultural leaders who are working on this field and try to facilitate that. So we hope to work on this in the upcoming future. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much. Tabo, we have some few minutes left for some questions. A great presentation. Thank you very much for that. Marjolein, are there questions to Tabo?
I do have a question, yes. What makes designing against subversion different from other behavioral change projects?
Well, the starting point for this type of crime was that the safety organization said, okay, we really need to collaborate with citizens. We cannot do this alone. And yeah, the dominant way for citizens to look at this is that they don't see a role for themselves. So there's a shout out from these organizations to society, but there are no. It needs new relations, and citizens need affordances to deal with this, and this is lacking. So this is a very obvious task, I think, for social designers.
Yeah. Very obvious, you say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is where a social designer is at its strength, in its power. And we need to redesign the relationship between these large, big organizations like the public prosecutors or the Ministry of Justice and Security. They need to come down to this from their big towers and interact with society. And yeah, this is a very promising field, I think.
A promising field. Well, wonderful. Let me see if is there also a question from our audience here at the FNR? No, this was Was this the only question?
Yes, sorry. Yes.
Because the last minute then, Tabo, is for you, because I think it was a perfect presentation also about how to combine those two worlds together. But the second slide, you compared those different perspectives or the different worlds of the designers and the safety world, and how you can actually make that connection.
Mm-hmm.
So what is your most important tip for our viewers back home, but also for the people here in Effenaar? How can you, what are you doing actually to make sure that you use the right words, the right vocabulary, that those two worlds really can collaborate?
We really invested in trying to find the right words, to find vocabulary to create the right expectations on both hand sides of the field. And it's all about creating the right context for this collaboration, and it's about language, it's about what type of money are we working with, what is it meant for, what type of people are joining this process, do we have people in the team who can really make a change on a systemic level?
Because do you have to stretch yourself as well? Do you have to come out of your comfort zone as a designer to reach the other part?
Yeah, of course, it's always an adventure. I'm totally new in this world or other worlds.
But do you have to dress differently, for example, or do you have to speak differently?
Yeah, it helps. It helps sometimes to wear a suit or wear trainers on the right moment. Yeah, so you can be aware of that. Yeah, and it's really about setting up the right expectations, and like earlier was mentioned here, give comfort on a process level. So what are the steps we are taking? Mm-hmm. What are the moments we are making decisions? Because you cannot talk about the results because you want to find out.
Yes.
So these are several tips to do this collaboration.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Tabo Goudswaard, for your absolutely inspiring presentation.
Thank you.
Because we are reaching the end of Drive Safety, our fourth broadcasting actually for this week. But tomorrow we have our last broadcasting. Tomorrow we will talk about health, about co-creation in the healthcare system with patients, employees and citizens, about intimacy and the value-based healthcare. So please join us tomorrow as well, 11 o'clock, Drive 2020 about health. And before you actually switch off, please fill in the poll because you want to know what Drive Safety brought you today. Thank you for watching, and also thank you for being here live at the Effenaar, and see you all tomorrow. Thank you.